Alright, so for this section, we're going to talk about two new properties. We're going to talk about the property where you subtract the exponents, and we're also going to talk about what you do with negative exponents. Okay? So here's the thing, and this is the key. The directions say simplify your answers should contain only positive exponents. Okay? So if you have negative exponents, you're not at the final answer yet, and we'll talk about how you make them all positive. Okay? So I'm going to do a couple examples. Again, I'm going to show you the long way as to why the property works, but then we'll practice doing the shortcut, which is what you ultimately want to do. Okay? Alright, so now we have fractions. Remember, fractions mean you're dividing, right? So if I write this out the long way, the top of the fraction is 5 to the 4th. So that means the top of my fraction is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. It's 5 4 times. And the bottom, remember, if there's never an exponent, put a 1. This means 5 to the 1st, which is just 5 one time. Now, look at this fraction. What can I do with the top and the bottom? You'll notice that I can cancel 1 5 on the bottom with 1 5 on the top. And then that leads us to our answer. I now have the same base 5, and now I got 5 1, 2, 3 times. That's the answer. Alright, so the shortcut is it's basically the opposite. The first property you learned was that when you multiply the same bases, you add the exponent. Therefore, when you divide bases, then you subtract the exponent. So the shortcut would have been the base 5 stays the same, subtract just the exponent. 4 minus 1 is 3. And you can see the reason why that works is because things cancel out. You're essentially, I had 4, I canceled out 1, that's subtraction. Okay? Alright, so let's look at this one now. And we're going to try it with the shortcut. Okay? So, number 3 down, we'll go here. 2 squared divided by 2 cubed. Okay? So, here's what we're going to do. The base stays the same. So I'm going to keep my base 2 because these are all 2's, right? Now remember, when you subtract, though, you do have to do the top minus the bottom. You can't change the order. So this is 2 minus 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Okay, so now this is our second property that we're going to introduce here. We cannot have negative exponents in our answer. Okay, now here's another thing. This is a mistake that people make, so don't do this. Some people think 2 to the negative 1 just means negative 2. It does not. Okay, you can't do a negative exponent. Okay, it doesn't make the numbers negative. You can't even do it. We can only do positive exponents. So here's our property. Okay, basically, like that first video told you, a negative exponent means the reciprocal. So it means if you have a fraction, you flip it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just like, remember when we were doing graphing and we had slope, we can always make anything a fraction by putting it over 1, right? So I can take this 2 over negative 1 and I can put it over 1. It still means 2 to the negative 1 power. And now what I'm going to do is to get rid of a negative exponent, you move it to the opposite side. So it goes from the top to the bottom. Nothing happens to the 2. All these properties are all about the exponents. So the base doesn't change, but this negative 1 now becomes positive 1. And when it's empty on a fraction, you put a 1 to make it not empty. And the final answer will be 1 over 2 to the first power is 2. The answer is 1/2. So you see this negative exponent never made anything negative here. Alright, so you need to, whenever you see a negative exponent, if it's not already a fraction, throw it over 1 so you can move it to the other side. Okay? And that's key because the final answer, the 2 is on the bottom. The 2 is on the top, it's entirely wrong. So you have to have it in the right place. Alright, let's take a look at number 5. Now we've got numbers and variables. Okay? So just like the multiplication, we handle them separately. We'll look at these kind of separately here too. Okay? So, once again, if I do this the long way, 3r squared means 3 times r times r. And the bottom 2r is just 2r. It's only 1r, or an r one time. Okay? Alright, let's do our property first. I can cancel out an r and an r. That means I have r squared on the top, right? And then this 3 over 2. Now, I'm not subtracting these. These are not exponents. We're only subtracting exponents with the same base. So remember when we have different numbers, on the multiplication we just multiplied them, right? Now it's division. Now can I do 3 divided by 2? No, it won't be an even number. It'll be like 1.5. And I can't simplify it. I can't divide it by the same number. So in this case, nothing happens to the numbers. The 3 stays on top, the 2 stays on bottom. And that's the answer. Okay? Alright, let's look at number 7 here. Now we've got 10p to the 4th divided by 6p. Alright, so let's practice our property first. So let's look at our base of p. We got p to the 4th on top, and I got p to the 1 on the bottom. Remember, it's always okay to put that 1 so you can see it. So if I subtract, I've got p to the 4 minus 1 is p to the 3rd. And when you have a fraction, after you subtract it, always put it on the top. Whether it's positive or negative, throw it on top. So that takes care of the p's. Now we're going to do 10 divided by 6. Now I can't do 10 divided by 6 and get an even number. If I punch that on my calculator, it's going to give me like 1.66 or something. But what we can do is we can simplify the 10 to 6. I can simplify it by dividing it by the same number. I can divide both of these by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So if you can't divide it, see if you can simplify it, and that's your final answer there. Okay? Alright. Let's see here. Actually, let's talk about one more property here. There is also another special property when this happens. Let's look at number 9. We got 8m to the 3rd over 10m to the 3rd. So, remember we're going to subtract these exponents because the m is the same base. So this will be m to the 3 minus 3 is 0, and I subtracted and put it up top. This is an exponent of 0, and that can happen. And we'll talk about that, but let's finish these numbers off first. 8 divided by 10, I can't do that, but I can simplify it. I can divide both of these numbers by 2 again. So the top number, 8 divided by 2, turns to a 4. The bottom number, 10 divided by 2, turns into a 5. Alright, now here's the thing. Anything to the 0 power, any exponent to the 0 power, always equals 1. Okay? Now, a mistake that some people make, and don't do this, some people think a little bit ahead. They remember that, and when they get an exponent of 0, they say, oh, the exponent is 0. I mean, an exponent is 1. No, the whole thing is 1. Okay? The exponent is 0. We've already said that. It doesn't change it to 1. The whole thing is 1. So, let's apply that property here. This means 4 times m to the 0, right? So really that means 4 times 1 over 5. 4 times 1 is just 4 over 5. So because it's basically 1 and we're multiplying, it really doesn't do anything. It just kind of disappears. Okay? Alright, let's do a couple with a little more pieces and bases in it. Okay? Alright, let's go down here on the back of this, on this next page. Let's take a look at, alright, let's come over here to the top. Let's do 12. Okay? 12 is a good one. Alright, 12 says 8x cubed divided by 10x to the 5th. Alright? Now remember, just to make things easy, just do one thing at a time. Alright? I like doing my variables first. Okay, you can do the numbers first, but remember, don't look at it and get overwhelmed and say, I don't know, just go one thing at a time. So I'm going to do my x bases because that's the same base. So when I subtract it, I'm going to put it up top always. And now remember, it's always top minus bottom. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Remember, whether you get a positive or negative, you throw it on the top when you subtract. Now let's handle the numbers. 8 divided by 10, I can't do it, but I can simplify. I can divide these both by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Alright, now we're almost there, but hopefully you're recognizing now that we cannot leave this as the answer because I have a negative exponent. No negative exponents in the answer. So here's what we're going to do. Now, when you do the negative exponent property, it doesn't mean you flip everything. Okay, you might think that right now. We only move what has a negative exponent. So if you look here, the only thing with a negative exponent is the x. Because once again, if you think about it, what's the exponent on the 4? A positive 1. The 5 has a positive 1. Positive exponents don't move. Only what the negative exponent is. So what's going to happen here is, on my final answer, the 4 stays and the 5 stays because they have positive exponents. But only the x squared moves down. Nothing happens to the base, but the exponent becomes positive. That's not the answer. Okay? So you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't flip the whole fraction. You only move the negative exponent to the opposite side. That's it. Okay? Alright, let's try one more here. Let's look at 14. Alright, so 14, we got 14 x to the 4th times y to the 7th divided by 6 times x to the 5th times y to the 4th. Let's go piece by piece. So you can see we got two bases that are the same, x and x. Therefore, we subtract top minus bottom. 4 minus 5, negative 1. And then we got y and y. So we're going to subtract the y's, put them on top, subtract just the exponent. 7 minus 4 is 3. Now remember, I'm not going to subtract these because these are not the same base. So I treat them like regular numbers. 14 divided by 6, I can't divide it. It'll give me a decimal, but I can simplify. I can divide both of these by 2 because they're even. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Alright, so far so good. Now let's look at our answer. Hopefully you're seeing that I cannot have this in my answer. No negative exponents. So we're going to move things, and we're not going to move everything. We're only moving what has the negative exponent. So the 7 stays up top. The y to the 3rd stays up top. The 3 stays on bottom, and now the x to the 1st power comes down and is now positive. Now we're done. Okay? So go back and do the page before this and this page, and we will have covered all the properties, and we'll do more practice after that.